let's take the demand even
Yeah.
at face value. I mean, let's not assume that there's any other political undercurrent with it. At face value, that we do not want Western education, could that be a legitimate demand?
Well, for me, in fairness, if a person says, I don't want to be educated, you cannot force him to be. But then at the same time, you cannot also force me not to embrace that Western education. This is the problem with the Boko Haram demand. It could be for their members as the association that we don't want. But you don't use violence to stop others who are embracing it. And that's where the legitimacy of their demand comes in, as you have asked. I do not support that you will insist that your view must be imposed on all others. I cannot accept that. Because it's through Western education that I'm here. And I'm sure that you are here. And they are also getting their voice to be heard. But my concern is that we cannot throw away the legitimacy of that demand on the altar of not negotiating. Because we have a problem. Human beings are in their custody. And they are achieving these things daily through the violence that they are imposing on us because of the weakness of the military. Since we don't have the capacity to engage them, fire for fire, that will get us to a stage where we say, by next year or in another 5 years' time, we are sure that we are getting there. Every day, they are getting boldened.
Yeah, but
day in, day out, they seem to be conquering the military every day. And it's not in our interest to continue in that light.
But don't forget, there are also cases where, because before now, it was rampant. The bombings were in several cities. But the military keeps telling us that, look, they've been able to restrict them to that little location where they are now. So if that happened, restricting them to that area, is that incapability on them?
I don't know what you mean by restricting them to locations. There's a bomb attack in Jos. We have left the northeast now. It's come to north central.
Yeah, but that
the Jos thing is repeated. I have the belief that if Boko Haram says there's going to be an attack in Abuja tomorrow, it will happen. Because it seems that they have cells virtually everywhere.
So does that
I'm saying that I do not share the view that the military has capacity to engage them. And I do not also share the view that we say the military is not doing anything.
Okay, but what about this comment by Kito, who says, look, he said, Mr. Ebon, the U.S. has been bedeviled by random school shootings for a long time now. Does that mean that their law enforcement is also incapable?
The United States of America, if you watch the trend of events there, took the battle against Al-Qaeda as a primary assignment. Goals were set. Targets were given. And those things were achieved. That's what I'm saying. I don't know the goal of the military in Nigeria in terms of strategy. And we can see that from what has happened since 2010, when this insurgency of Boko Haram started, it seems that the offensive has continued to escalate. If 4 years after the insurgency started, there is nothing being done to eliminate or at least reduce it, it will seem to be that there are probably problems with the military in terms of their capacity to engage them. I must commend, in fairness, all our military men, our soldiers, but I'm looking at it that it will seem that what should be done is not being done in terms of funding, in terms of capacity of intelligence.
No, but recently the National Assembly met, and then they did ask the president to come up with an appropriation. If they have requests for the military, come up with that budget, and then they'll pass it. Yeah, so they're all pulling together in that. They recognize that we've got a funding challenge, and they're willing to solve it.
Yeah, this is the point I'm making, Chamberlain. If in the past 4 years we give 20% on the average to defense, then let's have an inspection of the things that have been acquired through that budgetary allocation.
You know, I think talking about the headlines, which I also saw today, and well, all three yesterday we saw it in some of Newswire, the U.S. to keep its 9,800 troops in Afghanistan. It tells you that the battle against insurgency is not an easy one.
It's not.
For the U.S. to say, look, we're leaving almost 10,000 troops in Afghanistan until we still have pockets of violence here by insurgents and terrorists in Afghanistan. That is why some would say what we're having here is something that wouldn't go away too quickly. It's a never before experienced kind of warfare we're having in the country. So we shouldn't be quick to say the military is not, or our agencies, secret agencies are not doing enough. Chamberlain decided, I'm trying to bring this to bear so that you look at what we're trying to highlight. Chamberlain started by letting you know that before now, it was almost like a Sunday affair. One church somewhere or a Muslim cleric is being killed until they were caged to just the northeast. Isn't that an indication that there is something positive within our agencies, that they are truly working?
Well, you remember, Suleiman, that in May 2013, the president declared a state of emergency in 3 states because of the escalation of the attack as we then witnessed it. And I must say that I agree with you in a way that it was contained to a particular section. Now, why I have problem, however, is this. A state of emergency means that things are restricted. It's not the normal way of life. There will be curfew, movements are screened. And that state of emergency was in place on the 14th of April. In other words, in Chibok, in Borno State, there was supposed to be a state of emergency, whereby movement of vehicles are restricted, people don't have access to telephone and that kind of thing. And this thing happened.
No, but they have access to telephones.
No, I'm saying that if there's a state of emergency, which is declared by the military, means that they have occupied virtually every street or the local government. By the government. The person who declared the state of emergency is the chief of, is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. So it's the military that will enforce the state of emergency. I just have this concern that between politicians, between our military leaders, there seems to be something hidden that Nigerians are not aware of in terms of the diversion of funds. Because the coordinating minister of the economy, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, says, look, within this period and so period, we have released billions of money to the military. Let them tell us what they have used the money for. I'm saying that part of the problem of what we are paying for can also be traced to corruption from our leaders.
No, but can we say that in a clear-cut way? Because the way some of these things work, remember, the late NSA always told us that, look, this took us unawares. We were not specifically prepared for insurgency. And can we also say that the military are just like, what, sitting ducks, not doing anything? So because they don't come up and give these kind of strategies and specifically what they've done, we can assume that. I mean, it could be, some could say, they're not doing anything.
There's no strategy that the military has currently, Kimberly.
No strategy?
Yes, because the strategy...
That won't be right.
No, let me tell you the truth. The strategy is that the Chief of Defense Staff says, we have a secret. And the secret is that we have located the place where the girls are being kept, but we don't want to disclose the details of what we are doing. And I agree with the response of the chairman of the Senate Committee on Education, Chukwumerije. What is the secrecy in a strategy that has been disclosed? Which of the information we have received from the military which has not been recanted in terms of this program?
I also listened to some international military experts in some of the foreign countries, and they said, well, yes, indeed. Well, yes, they've told us that they have that one, but he was also right not to have disclosed it. So some military experts don't fault it. Some politicians fault it. So where does that leave us?
In the course of this attack on these Boko Haram girls, China offered information. France offered assistance. United States government offered assistance. Israel offered assistance.
All on intelligence basis.
Yes. And yet, there was a panel that held in the U.S. Congress, and they opened up clearly and said that we are not progressing because the people we are working with don't have the capacity and motivation to engage in warfare. I read that, sir. I don't know whether you read it.
No, but...
I mean, and these are the people who are to lead the attack. And they said, look, the Nigerian people on the ground do not have enough manpower or motivation to engage in that war, that the military seems to be tired. They are worried. I read that report, Mark. I don't know whether you listened.
But that's not
I watched it, actually.
That's not the
case. So I'm saying that...
We speak to some of these persons in the theater of war, and this is not the case.
No, based on all these revelations is why I support an engagement. I'm not legitimizing the demands of Boko Haram or saying that they're doing what is right. Oh, honestly, by all means. But for me, from the point of view of what we have seen since 2010, we do not have a military that has the capacity to map up any strategy that can engage them. And so, for the sake of these girls, let there be a negotiation that will bring them back. That's my own take on this matter, sir.
Okay. Ben Olu-Adegboruwa is a legal practitioner. Thank you for coming on this morning.
It's my pleasure.
All right, we'll be back after this break. Join us again.